Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about romance books. So I love me a good romance book, young adult. I am a fan and I have been a fan of romance books for so many years. Sometimes I don't know if it's just me, but I be laying in bed and rather than watch a movie, I just want to open my phone or open my tablet and just read a good book. I am someone who prefers ebooks. I do prefer ebooks because they're easy to maneuver with. I have not read an actual, have a thick cover of a book since I think Twilight. No, 50 Shades. 50 Shades and Twilight. Those are the last real hard covered books that I read. So I love me some ebooks because literally you can take them anywhere. And I just, the reading is fun. And any time and place that I can take in some reading, this girl will. So today I will be sharing with you some of my favorite reads, currents and past. I have read some are in a series, most of them are not. So let's get into it. All right. So book number 1. So this one is one that I currently finished, right? I think I finished probably a month ago. And this book is a young adult, and I loved this book. And this book is called Bully's Secret by Octavia June. So I will list the picture right here. So I loved that book, and what I loved most about that book, it's basically on a girl who is on the it's about a girl who's in high school and she doesn't look like your typical beauty queen. She's beautiful, but of course, people don't see it. And she's basically bullied by these fool guys. And you go into these stories and, they tease her, they take pictures of her, they literally post horrible pictures of her on a Facebook page. And she thinks it's the boys, but they all deny it. And so she has a teacher, and this teacher partners her up with all 4 of these boys, and she's the only girl. So she's decided that, it's time for some revenge. And she goes ahead and she starts, she goes to their house. When she goes over their houses, she finds out from each boy different little secrets which explain why they act the way they are. And as you go more toward in the book, you realize it's not really that they don't like her. It's actually the opposite. And I think most of the boys just can't really fathom of why they like her. So you go on the journey of that with her. I love the book. I definitely recommend. I cannot wait for book 2 that comes out December 31st. So definitely check that one out. Number 2. So this one is a series, and I think in the series it has 6 books, actually maybe more. And I've read the entire series. It's the Rosemary Beach series by Abby Gilliland. And I have read each book in this series. And I feel like when I think of an author that does character development well, I think of her. She takes you along for a whole ride in the book, and it's honestly, it's beautiful. My favorite ones were definitely between Blair and Rush. Um, at first, you think Rush is a terrible person, and it's the beauty within Blair that makes him realize that he can be a good person. And they go through so much throughout the series. It is definitely a book I recommend. I think it's great. And if I had to choose my favorite characters in the book, I loved Blair and Rush, but I really had a soft spot for Della. And she is in book 2. No, she's in book 3. She has her own book with someone else. And I definitely recommend. That is book 2. So book number 3 is called Painted Faces. And Painted Faces was a book. It's originally called Painted Faces, but I think probably 2 years later, the author decided to write the boys' pub, and which was called Killer Queens. In my opinion, now I I love both books, and I think they are both very dynamic and very, very different. They are not your typical romance. It's not boy meets girl, they fall in love, and the end. No, they go through a lot, and you see pain and you see struggle. And I think I embodied this one so well because I think what I loved about this book was they don't usually in romance books show hurt and pain coming from the male aspect. They usually tend to show it through the female aspect of, how the drama she's been in her life, the struggles. And it was so refreshing to finally have a book show that men go through hurtful things too. So it takes place in Dublin, and you meet a girl named Frida who I love her personality. You cannot, if she was a real live person, she would be my best friend. She is so sarcastic. She cracks jokes at everything, and she tries to find the best out of everything. Even when you're trying to like make a joke on her, she's just gonna one up you, and at the end of the day, she's either gonna laugh with you, or she's gonna make you feel like, hi, in your face, you tried to hurt my feelings. Not gonna happen. So, and then you have Nicholas. Now, Nicholas is your usual, he's the good-looking man. He has charisma, he has game, and he's very witty with it. And they meet at a door when he moves to a new apartment, and she is drenched from water, and he looks at her and he sees that she's drenched obviously from the rain, and he goes, "Oh, I guess I missed the wet t-shirt contest." So she looks up and she looks at him and she looks down and she goes, "Oh, yes. And you best believe I won first place. I mean," and she was like, "You should come along next time. You really missed out." And they banter towards each other, and it's great. And when you develop more into the story, you realize that Nicholas has had a lot of trauma in his life. And it's a beautiful story about acceptance, accepting who you are, accepting your past, and finding someone that can make you feel like life is still good even though life has not been the best for you. Nicholas is a performer, and he is a performer, but he is a drag queen. Now, obviously when you think of drag queen, you think they're usually gay. But no, Nicholas is not gay. He is actually very straight, but you learn more throughout the story of why he likes this persona, which he calls Vivica Blue. And you can see through the whole entire story, Frida was the one, when she first found out, she accepted it completely. And they built a friendship. It wasn't just jump right into the love story. No, they built a friendship, they built a connection. Yes, there's hurt, and I cried in this book for it, but it definitely had to happen, and I think it made the story great. I definitely recommend Painted Faces, but my favorite was definitely Killer Queen because it was more funny. You definitely get more into Nicholas's life, which is what I felt was missing in book one. And I'm not gonna lie, the epilogue in Killer Queen was the best. I loved it. That was number 3. So, book 4. Book 4 holds a special place in my heart, and it's because it's the first book that I ever read. And as a girl, I felt like most books, when you start reading them, the girl is absolutely stunning. She's beautiful, she's the perfect girl. And I felt like this book showed you that perfect is different in everybody's eyes and everybody is beautiful. So, this book is called On the Plus Side by Tabitha Vargo. This book also it's a series and it has 2 books. The next book is called Hot and Heavy and it is on Lily's best friend. But I am here to talk to you on the plus side. So we have this girl, Lily, and Lily is a girl. She is filthy rich. And her dad doesn't have time for her, so she doesn't see her often. She has lunch dates with her mother weekly, and she literally, you can see out of the kindness of her heart she does it, but she thinks her mother is totally self-centered, but it's her mom, and she loves her mom to an extent as the best as she can. So Lily is a rich girl, but what is great about Lily is she is filthy rich and she has more money than you can ever imagine. But she drives a beaten up car. She lives in an apartment which she splits rent with her best friend. Now I know what you're thinking. How is she that nice if she's rich and she splits rents with her best friend? So you find out in the book that yes, Shannon has been paying her monthly for rent, but she never cashed out those checks. And it was Lily's best friend, go to girl. Like she could tell Shannon everything, and Shannon was always there for her. So she's on the lunch date with her mother, and she looks across the room and she sees this adorable old couple. And they're being adorable. They're married for years, and I think they're sharing a dessert because they're at a cafe. And Lily turns to her mother and she goes, "Oh, Mom, have you ever been in love? Like when you were with Dad, did you love that feeling of being in love?" And you notice that her mom, for the first time ever, is stunned and stops talking about her shopping sprees and her trips and, you know, how Lily shouldn't work at a jewelry store. Lily should, embrace herself and that just be someone she's not. And her mother turns to her and says, "Yes, I loved your father and we had our good times." And she was like, "But why are you asking this question?" And she looks into Lily's eyes and she notices the one thing that Lily craves the most is love. So, but Lily, obviously, she thinks it's adorable and she wants it, but she doesn't believe she will ever get it because she's not perfect, she's not beautiful and all. So they have their lunch date and Lily goes back to work. So then her mother goes to a bank and she meets Devin. Devin, who is fighting with a bank loaner so he can loan some money so he can help his dad pay off the house. And so they get into a debacle because the bank says no and he gets mad and he starts like causing a scene and he gets, they handcuff him, they throw him into, I think, jail. I'm not so sure. But so he just sits there for a few hours and he's expecting his dad to bail him out. So they then tell him that his bond has been paid. So he walks out and he's waiting to see his dad's truck, especially asking his dad, "Where did you find this money?" And he sees Lily's mom. And she goes, "I'm the one who bailed you out. Now, can you come into my limo so we can talk?" And he's like, "I'm sorry, lady. I don't do that type of business," because he's obviously thinking, hello. And she was like, "Please." She was like, "Someone of my criteria would never think of ever doing that with you." And he was like, "Okay, then piss off." And he's walking away. And she was like, "I can make all your problems become a solution." So he's intrigued. So he gets into the limo and he talks. And he was like, "Okay, what can I do for you?" And she goes, "I need you to pretend to be absolutely in love with my daughter." And he goes, "What's wrong with her? Is she like growing three heads? Like, I don't understand. Like, and why would you set up your daughter? Like, that's horrible." And she was like, "I can give my daughter anything in the world, but there is one thing I can't give her, and that's love. And it's the one thing she requires and she wants more than anything." So, his house is about to get repossessed. Foreclosed, I mean. His house is about to get foreclosed. So he goes, "Okay." And she gives him her name, where she works, and, he's off, which is how you can tell it's a story because I don't think a real mother would actually do that. But so goes off and says, and he meets Lily and he sees that she's actually a great person. And he has a struggle between feeling bad for what he's doing, but at the same time, he needs to save his family. So you see the struggle, and like sometimes in the book, you get so angry because you're like, she doesn't deserve this, because obviously we as the reader, we know the secret, and she doesn't. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but you follow through and you see Devin fall in love with Lily and Lily fall in love with Devin. And, you can expect your typical romance drama, but I love this book. And the ending, she got her a happy ending and she deserved it more than anything. And I'm so glad she did. So that was On the Plus Side by Tabitha Vargo. Okay, so the last and final book I'm going to talk to you about is, so this book is called Perfection by R.L. Matthewson. Now, it is book 2. And I'm talking to you about book 2 because it was my favorite. But honestly, if I could say I loved an entire series, it was definitely this one. What I loved about R.L. Matthewson is that the book wasn't only about romance. Everything was so funny. Everything in this book was so funny. I found myself crying throughout this whole series because it was just so funny. Like it makes you think, like, where do, like, I can't even imagine being that creative and thinking of something. So we learn about the Bradford family in book 1, Playing for Keeps. And it goes through a series. They're mostly cousins, uncles, dads. You hear about different. And you hear about different ones. But book 2 is about Trevor, and he meets his neighbor Zoe. Now, this series is literally about living with your neighbor from hell. So think of the worst neighbor you could ever have and then falling in love with that person. And that's exactly what this series is about. Now, Trevor is delusional, is what I would say. A man that is delusional. He literally has this idea of, the perfect wife who cooks, cleans, makes her own money, is rich, can do anything he needs, whip up a pie, whip up a cake, anything you can think of, his wife can do. And he's thinking that's who he's going to end up with for the rest of his life, and that's what he's looking for. He has a specific type of nose, body, literally to the T. He has designed his perfect wife in his head. And so he owns the apartment next door to Zoe, but he actually owns all the apartments. Now, he says that his aunt owns it because he doesn't like to deal with tenants, which is exactly what he tells Zoe when they first meet. So Zoe's having a bad day. She gets fired from work, even though she literally found out that her boss's wife was taking millions of dollars every year without him noticing. So, millions of dollars was disappearing. He didn't even notice. And literally she finds it and she hears the wife throwing a tantrum, and the wife almost slaps her in the face, but the guards grab her. And she's thinking, oh, okay, she did something good. And then the boss comes out and he looks at her and he goes, what are you still doing here? She was like, oh, what do you mean? And he was like, you're fired. And then she was like, for what? I just found out. And he was like, you didn't find it fast enough. That's why you're fired. So she loses her job. Then she gets home and Trevor is parked in her parking spot like he has been for the past 6 months that she's been living there. Then she gets out of the car and she slams her door and her windows start sliding down. And she has to race back and push it up. And she pushes it up and it still goes down a little. And she's like, you know what? Forget it. And then as she's walking towards her door, it's raining. So a car passes by and hits a puddle and all the mud just gets on her. And so she's having a horrible day. So typical when you're thinking of a horrible day, to make anything better, you're going to eat what you want to eat and make yourself happy. So she orders this whole pizza, wings, soda. Oh my God, it sounded so delicious. Oh, and chicken tenders. It was great. And breadsticks. It was great. I'm a foodie, so of course I would remember the food. So, and she orders it and she orders delivery. And the guy tells her, okay, it will come in like an hour and a half. And she was like, that's fine. So she takes a shower, she cleans her apartment, she does everything that she has to do. And she's trying to relax and she's trying to forget about the bad day she had. And so it's 2 hours and she hasn't gotten her order. And she hasn't gotten her order because the delivery person went to the house next door, which was Trevor's. Not allowed to order from there. Actually, any Bradfords are not allowed to order from there. They're banned. So, but he lies to the guy. He goes, no, 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 I'm not a Bradford. It's my neighbor next door that's a Bradford. And the guy goes, okay. So it would be like 40 something dollars. So he pays it and he takes the pizza. Then when Zoe calls, they tell her that. And she storms next door because they say, oh, we delivered it. Da, da, da. She storms next door and she was like, so not only do you park in my parking spot, mud all over my mat, and I have to park on the streets and I've gotten dozens of tickets, and you're a thief on top of it. You stole my food. And he was like, I did not steal your food. Mind you, he has a pizza in his mouth. And then she was like, yes, I ordered that exact order and 2 hours ago, and they said they delivered it to you. And may I say that you're banned from that pizza place? And then, so he gets mad because he's starving. There's nothing in his fridge. And he goes, it's not like you need it anyway, which it's a mean joke because he's looking at her. And so she was like, you know what, forget it. And she starts crying and she goes away. So he apologizes, and they have a great relationship. She tells Trevor her problems, that she's going to get fired. And then Trevor says, oh, my uncle's hiring. You should try there. She tries the uncle and she gets hired there. And then she also becomes, I think this is weird, but she becomes Trevor's like cleanup lady, I guess. Like she'll make sandwiches for him and stuff. But they create a friendship. And he also pays her for that. And to get his groceries because he's a very busy guy. So you go along their story, and I love this book because, like I said, the banter, and it's not only the banter between Zoe and Trevor, you also see the banter between him and his family. Definitely recommend. I say check it out. I love these books, and I hope you guys love them too, and I definitely recommend. Thanks for watching today's video. See you guys next week.